Joe Diamede here, Joe's Velosophy, in front of my little atelier here where I fix bikes and I just do tinkering in my little cave of bike parts and frames, and I try to keep my philosophical head on when I'm working on bikes and trying to keep the neighborhood rolling. Bikes have been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. Me like everybody else, probably the first bike under the Christmas tree in the Bronx. I bought my first bike from Arrow Cycles. Unfortunately burnt down recently, last October, and the owner was still working in there until well into his 80s, maybe even 90, and he died recently as well. But I luckily had seen him a couple of years ago when I was there. I stopped in the shop and I saw him and his daughter. I was sad to find out that his bike shop burnt down, and he saw it burn down, which must have been devastating for him. It was not only a bike shop, it was a museum. I love that shop, and I like old bikes, and I like bikes from that era. I like the mountain bikes, older mountain bikes and older racing bikes, and I transform bikes, and I just, the bikes is just in my blood. In my first job when I was 13 years old, I was working for a local butcher delivering meat, and his wife had a laundromat next door, so occasional bags of laundry got delivered on those big truck bikes with a big basket in front and solid wheels all over the Bronx. And so every day after school I'd come home and go right across the street to the local butcher and get on my bike and delivered meat and laundry. It was great. I did that for a year until I was 14, 15, sophomore in high school, and it just gave me, I explored my neighborhood, all these different parts of my neighborhood that I had never really explored before. And it just put me on a trajectory of exploring by bicycle. So when I was 16, I bought my first really high-end bicycle, $180 back in 1976, whatever it was, 77. And that was a lot of money back then. And I loved it though. That bike, it was just a great bike. I rode all over the neighborhood. People used to see me everywhere. People started calling me Bicycle Joe, and I used to always show up. And when people were getting the taste for cars and getting a driver's license, me as well, 16, 17 years old, I still rode my bicycle lots of times to where we would all be hanging out in the park or whatever, and I just loved it. And then I got a motorcycle, and the bike was still a little bit a part of my life. Greg LeMond was inspiring us because he was winning Tour de France back in the 80s there, but I had my motorcycle as well, but I still got on my bicycle and I rode my bike, and just loved that bike. But then I started really exploring by motorcycle, and in Japan I was on my way to buy a motorcycle. Sold my first mountain bike ever in 1987. Whoa, boom, changed your life. Knew it then, and it changed my life. And I've been riding bicycles ever since. Around the world and all different countries. Met my wife up in the Tibetan Plateau. And I've written a couple of books. I wrote a book, Cycles of a Traveler, www.cyclesofatraveler.com. And Traveler with one L, spelled the American way. And you can see pictures of me on my bike traveling all over, and nice pictures. There's some interviews on my interview channel. If you look up my name, Joe Diamede, I have another channel, Telemann Brun or TTRP TV, where I do interviews with people with cycling, all different types of interviews, but I do have a cycling series as well. And then I started, after I got that bicycle in Japan, I traveled for 9 years. I lived on it. Basically, even if I went back to New York, I'd do a 3-year trip, come back to New York and work 6 months, 8 months, a year, and then took off again and just lived on my bicycle. The name Bicycle Joe stuck, even though I had an intervening couple of years with motorcycles, and I still have a motorcycle, but I definitely use the bicycle a lot more. I just kept on riding, and then after I met my wife on the Chinese-Tibetan Plateau, and our life got a little less nomadic, not too much less nomadic. She's English, I'm American. We moved back and forth, and she worked in bike shops with me back in the 90s in New York, and then I started working in the bike shop in England, and then we had our first child. We moved to France, and it was all with bicycles. We moved to France, small village, 2 bicycles and a bicycle trailer, and off we went. That's not recounted in that book, just a little bit in the beginning, but mostly it's about the travels up to when I met my wife on that bicycle, and we took off over 25 years ago. And then as I started owning bikes and bike shops and fixing bikes, and started back in the 90s in New York, and it just segued in when we moved to Ireland as a family. I opened a bike shop there, and then we moved here to France, and I sold that bike shop, and then I helped a friend open another bike shop in England. Bike shops, but I got to see the industry from a whole different side when I started owning, managing, owning you start be a buyer, you start looking at distribution, you start looking about how companies are run. And I love the bicycle, and like I said, it's given me so much in my life. But I just saw the industry from a different side. And during COVID, and I started writing this book before COVID, and then during COVID, I had a lot of time to put it together. And it's called Cycling Off the Cliff and How to Avoid It, an exploration of the business behind the bicycle. So it's a little bit more, it's not like exciting like my Cycles of a Traveler book and me in all these different countries of the world and what was going on, and a lot of philosophy in that book as well. The subtitle of that book is True Tales of Voyage, Discovery, and Synchronicity, and that's what the bicycle brings to us. And that's why I want to philosophize on this channel. Not only about bikes, gears, and ratios and handlebars, talk a little bit about that, but also the feeling behind. And I want everyone, comment, subscribe, share this to friends if you have bike geeks out there in your life, and if you're a bike geek yourself, hit the subscribe button down there in the right hand corner as you're watching this, and that'll be great. It'll be great. Share it, disperse it. We'll talk about all different things bicycle, and if you want to bring something up, yeah, we'll do it. And I can answer questions, and I've been, like I said, I've been in the bike world. I'm not an expert in any way, shape, or form on every form of bicycle, but I know a lot about touring, being comfortable on a bike, and the importance of being comfortable on a bike for long distances, and the things we could do about that. But again, that's nuts and bolts. We'll get into that later on in the channel. Cycling Off the Cliff, that's available on lulu.com, and you could put in Joe Diamede, Cycling Off the Cliff, and you could see if you're interested in that part of the bicycle business. It's what I wrote about, it's what I knew a lot about, and again, it's kind of my philosophizing about how could we get better in business, how could we make the bicycle business be one of these businesses that actually transcends just capitalism for money, making money for money's sake. And the industry already has a lot of people doing that, a lot of wonderful people in the industry. I've been blessed to be part of that industry for over 25 years. I find that people who own bike shops, work in bike shops, are usually pretty passionate people, and well, read the book and you could discover what's the other side of the bicycle business that we could all make better together. And currently, my latest thing is I just permaculture magazine, as we live here in France, and my wife is very much into gardening, growing her own food, and I love eating food from the garden. I help get my hands in that earth every once in a while, but most of the time I'm doing a lot of the building. I built this atelier behind me, and I do a lot of that stuff. And with the bikes, I'm always doing something creative with my hands. And yes, I do some of the gardening, and mostly weeding. But I wrote an article in Permaculture magazine just about how the bicycle and traveling on the bicycle and fixing bicycles the way I do has transformed, my life, and how it can transform other people's lives. And the name of that article is called See the World by Permacycling. Permacycling is another phrase I kind of philosophy, permacycling. Playing with words and playing with the word bicycle in both languages, English and, this is an English one, obviously, permacycling. But it's just about how it makes you more thoughtful, how you could, especially if you travel by bicycle slowly, you arrive in an area, you get to know it, you hear that lovely bird song. And also, sometimes you see the devastation of modern day agriculture, for example, or the devastation of war or natural disasters, the aftermath of an earthquake, the aftermath of a volcanic eruption. I cycled through lots of those, from the Philippines through Romania and India and beyond, traffic congestion to beauty in the same country within the same day. And so that's what the bicycle brings us, lets us see the dualities in our world. And I love it. I love it, love it, love it. And I want you to love it. And you don't have to be on 1,000 euros or dollars worth of bicycles in order to love a bicycle. And that's what I want to also bring to this channel. Different ways, creative ways, how you can get on a bike, why you don't have to spend so much money. Just get on the bike and ride. And like Queen said, get on your bike and ride. Ding, ding, ding. Joe Diamede, hope to see you more. Remember, subscribe, share, comment, like, and let's do this together, and let's philosophize. Every once in a while, when I put something up, it'll be a nice one. I'm an inspired moment to feel like a real philosopher. Okay, take care, be well, keep riding, check your garage, take out that old bike, dust it off, and you can still get pleasure out of a nice bike ride. It doesn't have to be the top greatest stuff. It could just be something that gave you pleasure once in your life, and it's still there. So more of that to come. Take care, be well, keep cycle.